Hello and welcome to this lecture on substantives. Hi, I'm Elliot Jones. I'm going to be running you through how to build good substantives, how to build debate-winning substantives. This lecture is specifically targeted at our novices here at Babson, but if you're a novice somewhere else, welcome. It's lovely to have you. This is mainly meant to fill the gaps for people who have maybe missed this training lecture because they had something else to attend, or maybe they've joined a little bit later in the semester and they're just looking to catch up on a few things. So whatever you're here for, welcome. It's lovely to have you. I'm going to run you through how to build good substantives today. So first and foremost, you're probably like, Elliot, what the hell are substantives? Well, don't worry, they're nothing to stress about. Really, at the end of the day, it's just a fancy debate word. And all it means is just like a point. It's kind of like one of your core arguments, like one of the core reasons for why your side is in the right. So there's nothing to stress about in that regard. We just like to use this fancy debate language because it's something that all debaters use. And I'll tell you a secret. The truth is, when judges hear you use words like substantive, they're going to be listening out and they'll be like, oh, this person knows what they're doing. They've clearly, had a bit of debate experience, and they're more likely to credit your arguments a little bit better. Should they do that? Is that wrong? 100% they shouldn't do that. 100% it's wrong. But regardless of it, we all know judges do it. So when do we use them? Well, we use them in the speeches of the PM, the leader of opposition, the member speeches in both closing government and both closing opposition. So pretty much any time you're speaking first on your team, you should be using substantives. You should be using a substantive structure. And then finally, why do you need to know this? Because substantives are probably the most core thing to winning debates. If you don't have good substantives, you will not win the debate. I can guarantee you that now. It'll be true today. It'll be true until the end of time. It's very true at a novice level because often teams struggle to put together very good substantives, but it's true all the way through the pros level. It's about how good that substantive is put together. So I'm going to chat you through what is a good structure for a substantive. Is it the only structure for a substantive out there? Of course not. But I've given this to lots of novs over the year, and it's been very successful at teaching them the basics of kind of doing this, and it's the structure I continue to use to this day. So there's 5 key steps you want to approach your substantives with. Firstly, you want to have a title. That one's nice and easy. All you need to do is kind of phrase it as kind of a question broadly that you're going to go on to answer. So let's say we're making an argument about smoking, and we're going to be chatting about, I don't know, the health harms of smoking, because the motion is this house would ban smoking and we're on government. So the title I might give it is, why does smoking cause health harms? Great. That's nice and easy. I imagine you've got the title all down right by yourself. But the second bit you need to do is a little bit of context. Well, what is context? Good context is things that you actually can't prove just through a bunch of debate logic. They're often scientific facts and things like this that are broadly accepted by the world, but aren't accepted kind of in a way that you can prove over like a minute or two that you have in your speech. So for example, for this, the context might be that smoking causes a number of diseases, including your increased risk of lung cancer and a plethora of other health conditions. We all know that that's broadly true, but you're just letting the judge know that this is core understanding that they need to have to engage with your argument. Next up, you've got the mechanization. I would say this is fundamentally the most important thing you will do in your speech, as part of the substantive at least. Mechanization is pretty much just like a fancy word for why is this true. And what I want you to do when you do this is ask yourself why every time. So pretty much you want to open up with a claim. So for example, I may make the claim that smokers put a strain on the health system. So I have to ask myself, well, why is that true? Well, it's because smokers, as they smoke, cause all these degenerative conditions, such as, like a failure of the lungs. Okay, that's great. I provided that in my context. So why is that bad? Well, the reason that that's bad is because as they get these conditions, they have to be treated in hospitals. And well, why is that bad? It's because hospitals have limited resources, and if they put more money into helping smokers deal with their health conditions, they are less able to help people with any other health condition, and therefore treatment gets broadly worse across the board. Do you see kind of how I went through each stage, and every time I made a claim, I was like, why, and keep asking yourself that until you're like, this is so simple, the judge has got to get it. My advice, I have never told a novice, you are over explaining this. That is something I've never told someone. I've always told novices that you are under explaining this, that you haven't kind of given me enough mechanization. So my advice is always do more, not less. If you do too much, I'll let you know, but you'll be the very first person I've trained that does it. Next, outcomes. At the end of each of these mechanisms, of which you should have multiple, I should have flagged that a moment ago, but you should have like 2 to 3 mechanisms. So if you're running the healthcare one, you might talk about pressure on the healthcare system, which we just talked about. You may talk about the harms to smokers, and you may talk about the harms to secondhand smokers. Those could be your 3 mechanisms. Obviously, you'd have to ask why. But broadly, that's kind of what you're thinking about. At the end of each of these, you should prove a claim that kind of helps you prove your kind of broad overall title of worse health outcomes. So just remind the judge of all the outcomes you've proved. So be like, we just proved that the health system gets worse, that there are more smokers dying and with illnesses, and finally, that there's more people dying for all those same reasons of secondhand smokers, though not just smokers. The reason you do that is because the analogy is that debate is kind of a battle that is fought on the judge's piece of paper in front of, or the adjudicator's piece of paper. So what you're looking to do is make sure your arguments are laid out there, very nice, easy to read, in great formation, because what you want is the judge to be able to go into the room when they're deciding who's going to win, look down, see your arguments clearly outlined, and you're like, bang, they proved this, this, and this, and they'll be like, okay, I could give them the win for that. So that's why we're doing the reminder of all the things you've proved in this point. Finally, impacting. Now that you've done all this, I'm like, okay, I believe that people are dying. Why the hell should I care about that? Obviously, it's a little bit more obvious in this one because there's death involved. But in other arguments, like for example, a 5% bump in GDP, it's a lot harder for me to understand exactly why it is that it's particularly important in the debate, especially regarding other claims, right? Because other people are going to say other things are important. So why is this like the most important? So you're kind of preemptively building in why your stuff is really important. There's 2 key things you need to think about. 1, how many people is this impacting? Is this impacting a lot of people? In this case, we can be like, yeah, everyone is going to get a worse healthcare treatment in the US and across the world if we don't ban smoking. So that is impacting everyone. That's the biggest scale you can get. The next piece is like, how bad is the impact? Like, is it really, really terrible? So for example, the highest burden is death, right? So you're like, death is like really terrible and bad, but it also impacts all their loved ones, etc. And there's a lot of emotional stress. So explain to me, why is it impacting a lot of people, and why is it impacting those people a lot? Those are kind of the 2 core things. If you can just prove one, that's fine. Optimally, you want to be proving both, though. Bonus tip, signposting. Now that you're doing this great substantive structure that I've just taught you, you're like, I'm ticking every box, I'm doing all the things I'm meant to do, and the judge should be like, you're doing great. But just in case they're not following along perfectly, we want to make sure that they are, so that they don't miss any of the excellent debating that you're doing. So what I'm going to ask you to do is signposting. Nice and easy. For the same reason that we have street signs, because a long time ago, before my time and yours, there was no Google Maps, and we had to look at all the signposts on the streets to work out where the hell we were going. So because of that, you need to signpost in your speech so the judge knows exactly where you are. So what I want you to do is, as you go through each step of your speech, I want you to tell the judge what step you're in. I want you to be like, obviously not for the title, because the title's super obvious, but be like, okay, here's my context. Ready, ready, rah. Now I'm going to give you my mechanisms, which there are 3 of. Ready, ready, rah. What are the outcomes of this? Blah, blah, blah. What are the impacts? Da, da, da. So whatever I'm doing, I am saying that exact word of what I'm about to do to the judge so they know exactly what I'm doing. These words will be familiar to them. They will know what they mean, and that'll help them understand whereabouts you are in your speech. Where to from here? The long and short of it is, do some practice. Hopefully you've taken some notes from this lecture. If you haven't, that's totally fine. You can skim back through the slides and maybe take a few. But my advice is go through the substantive with the slide up that has all the steps in it. Make sure that you're hitting each and every one of those steps, and then read it out loud and kind of do a recording of it. And then maybe go back through and tick off and make sure that you've done every single one of them. That would be my advice, because once you've done it, 5-10 times, you will have this as your structure that you do it every time. Your brain will just kind of automatically work in this function. But until you do a lot of practice to get there, it's really, really important that you nail down the structure, because once you get the structure good, you will make way better arguments in the debate, and you will see your debating slingshot to a whole new level. Well, thank you very much for listening. I hope this lecture has actually been helpful. I encourage you to go follow us on Instagram, because that's where all of our training times are posted, so you can find out exactly when we're training. Additionally, my head of social media is significantly more funny than myself, so you actually will hopefully find some funny debate content on there, because I can't imagine you've laughed a whole lot during this lecture, because I'm not actually that funny talking about substantives. But you will find good laughs over there. So hopefully we see you at our in-person trainings real soon. We look forward to having you. But regardless of that, all the best debating, best of luck with your practice, and until next time, goodbye.